Want to learn how to leverage workshops to get more clients? Well, fellow career coaches, the event that you're about to watch is a recording from our career coaches community where we had an amazing speaker, Stan Miller, the founder of StoryKid, a master storyteller and a master at workshops. In this workshop that you're about to watch, Stan breaks down how he uses workshops as a lead magnet to generate so many sales calls that he can't even handle and be able to convert them into his higher ticket offers. We break down the different ways to increase the engagement to your workshops. We talk about how to increase the number of attendees that are at the workshop to schedule sales calls. We also talk about how you should make your workshop very engaging, but also how to think about it from the lead's perspective so that they take so much value out of it without giving away too much value. This and more in this workshop. And if you have not already subscribed or joined our free career coaches community, what are you waiting for? There's a link below so that you can attend the next workshop that we do live. Welcome everyone. Super excited to see so many of you here today. That is amazing to see the engagement in this community is generating. Again, this is awesome. Like, this is the type of events that is going to allow us to elevate career coaching, to take us to to take career coaching to the next level, to normalize career coaching, because, it seems like, the higher you get in your career, the more we are okay with coaching, but we need to normalize it at all levels of it. And so the fact that there's so many coaches here that believe in collaboration over competition, the fact that the engagement in the communities is so amazing, I really, really appreciate it. Really quick before we get started, I want to guys ask you for a small favor. If you guys have been finding value in the community, right? As you guys know, it is a free community that we offer. If you guys don't mind taking 30 seconds after this event is over and please leaving us a testimonial, that would mean the world to us. We're really trying to grow the community, and those testimonials that we'll be able to post in the About Me section of it is what's going to really matter and growing and having more career coaches join this community, and therefore we can grow the impact that we're trying to generate. But I will share a link to it. Oh, there it is. This is where you guys can just take 30 seconds. Again, I appreciate all of you who have already done it. It will mean the world to us. Now, without further ado, today we're going to be talking about how to sell in live events. And to do so, we have the expert in doing this himself, Mr. Stan Miller. Stan Miller, Stan is a really good friend of mine. He's also in Orlando, Florida. We met, I think, probably 6-7 years ago. It's quite some time. And we had the pleasure of just growing our businesses and working together and collaborating a lot. He's a strong believer in collaboration over competition. Stan, one of the things I think Stan is just a ninja at how to sell your services in live events is he has such an amazing way of going and speaking at corporate events and using that speaking engagement as a lead magnet for further conversations, for further services. Stan is a master storyteller. He's a master communicator. I think you guys are going to be able to see that. If you have not already know who Stan is or met with him, you guys are going to see this in the next hour. And again, I want to have it very conversational. So please ask questions. Remember, we always run out of time, but without further ado, Stan, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Hey, thanks, Daniel, for having me. Thank you, everyone. I see all your smiling faces. Thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all. This community is so special. I think I was one of the first members in this community, Daniel. So thank you for having us all here. And I really just want you to know that I am here at your service today. I am here to give. I want you to feel free to ask questions. And Daniel and I didn't pull together a big agenda for this. We do want to talk about events, and I do want to give you any type of secret sauce that I may have on events, but that's going to depend on you and your participation. So we're going to talk about live virtual events. And I wanted to start by just saying we're available in the chat and anybody can come off of mute. So if you're currently doing live events, virtual events as sort of a lead magnet or at the top of your funnel, just type in the word "me" in the chat. So just type in the word me if you're doing any type of events for future clients or for clients and prospects. Yeah. Okay, good. So we've got a couple of people. Um, exactly. We're doing one right now. Absolutely. So there are a few of you that are doing them. What I wanted to really start with is, you know, for those of you that are in this room and you are doing live events, what do you feel like is working right now? And I want to invite you to come off a mute and just talk. Let's just have a conversation. What's actually working right now? Anybody feel free to jump on.
I would say LinkedIn audio events.
I'll say, so LinkedIn events,
LinkedIn
yes?
audio events. It's
Okay.
been all over the place. Everyone is doing it.
Yeah. And how's your success been?
It all depends. Sometimes I get a lot of people joining, sometimes
Mhm.
not. It all depends on the topic or guest speakers. Again, if they are sharing from their end, sometimes it helps,
Mhm.
sometimes it doesn't. Again,
Gotcha.
timing and everything, but so far it's been good. After that you get engagement, some followers, but the selling is the problem. That's why we're here to learn from you.
Yeah, so the selling is the problem. So one of the things that we have challenges with are selling inside of events, okay? And that has to do with expectations, and we're going to talk about that today. Somebody else give me some information on what is actually working inside of their live events. Anybody,
I
feel
feel
free.
I feel like I find really good topics.
Mhm.
And I feel like I have a good pulse on like what my ideal clients need, and what kind of events they would be interested in. It's just a matter of once I get them in, how do I get them on the path?
Yeah. Okay. So getting them there and then getting them on the path. So I think that I'm going to take one more and then we'll just double click on that. But anybody else want to chime in around experiences? Yes, Ariel, I see your hand.
Hi.
Hi.
I think I was talking about this with a mastermind group that I'm part of, and we were trying to identify like there's a bit of a difference between like workshops versus like LinkedIn Lives or like collaboration kind of conversations.
Mhm.
Um and even other events, and then just like finding the right kind of event where it feels appropriate to sell. And also like if you're doing a free workshop and you're giving lots of free value, that's great, you're building your brand, your reputation, but then like sometimes you don't know what to sell at the end because you're like, well, I've already just given them all this stuff for free. So it's that balance between knowing what to sell and what makes sense to sell after what you've offered.
Mhm.
And if you've done enough, I think of like the free value piece to sell something big or small. So sometimes like I only offer just a free consult after after a LinkedIn Live, for example, I'll just offer a free consult or a free audit. But then like if I'm doing a full day, resume workshop that's free, then I might offer a full coaching package because that makes more, because it's like leveling up, right? But I'm still trying to figure out when to do which because it doesn't always work. So love to
Yeah,
hear.
so context, right? Ariel matters, and that's great. And I love that you just said that because knowing what to do when, what to offer when is going to be so critically important in terms of, you delivering the event. And I'll just start by saying you should know that in the last 3 years, I have done probably no less than 24 or 25 events that are 1 hour events and in which I sell absolutely nothing in those events. Okay. Now, here's the catch. We all want to know how to sell in our events. I do sell in the call to action in my events at this point is an invitation to another event, which is a much longer event and a much different type of experience with me. So I want you to imagine a 60-minute event where you start the call by setting the stage. Okay, so let's just go through how do we actually set the stage for the event? We've got energy, expectation, and engagement, right? So at the front end of your webinars or your calls, you should be looking to give a backstory on yourself. Okay. And then I want you to think about the backstory and problems of your clients. And so, what I do on every single one of my events, we talk about, I lay it out for, let's just say it's a prospect event. I'm inviting people in, there's 60 minutes. I want to set the expectations for what they're going to experience at the very, very front of that event. What am I going to give them? What are they going to get? What are the problems that they have? Do I have empathy, and can I help them solve those problems? And what are we going to solve inside this event? Now, many of us are thinking about, well, what's the call to action going to be? What I want you to be thinking about is, what is the experience of you? How are they going to experience you inside of this 60-minute engagement? Okay. So if I ask you the question, I'm going to call on Ellie because I love Ellie. And she's just munching over there. So I'll give you some grace there, Ellie, to finish up. You know, how do you want people, Ellie, to experience you inside of your event?
That was good timing, just solid. I think what's important for me in my events is that people like get a sense of my vibe and my energy, and that I am an expert and I can help them, and I am so easy to talk to. Like, I want them to feel like they can totally open up to me and I understand what they're going through, and I'm really just there to support them. That's the vibe I want to create.
Yeah. And so we're talking about empathy. We're talking about energy, that you want to, your vibe is your energy, empathizing with them, make them feel comfortable, and let them know that you're easy to talk to. Now, here's something that will give you an immediate competitive advantage in events. Think about now, how do you want them to experience each other? How do you want them to experience each other? And this is a bit of a challenging question, because when we produce live events, many of us are thinking about the one-way street. It's us to many. And some of you who are great at this are thinking about, how do I want to deliver this message, and what do I want to sell at the end of this message? And that's great. But the magic in engagement is having them experience each other. So anybody can chime in. How do you want them to experience each other inside of your live event? Have you thought about that?
I think that for me, it's just, I don't like, once they hear someone else talking about the pain points they're experiencing, they realize that they're not alone.
Right. So you want them to connect with each other inside. Yeah. You want them to know that they're not alone. You want them to connect with each other. Yes. So the difference, an immediate game changer between your events and other coaches, can be that you just do something simple as breakouts. At the beginning of your event, I want you to imagine a time when you're setting the stage, you're coming in full of energy. And this is what I do, by the way. I start my events by letting people know, you can't buy anything in this event. I let them know. At the end of this event, there's no sales pitch. You can't buy it. I'm not selling you anything. I'm here to give. And then I talk about my backstory, and then I talk about what I believe they are feeling based on what I know. Okay. Now, yeah, you're right, Ariel. I'm just kind of keeping my eye on chat. You have to determine what platform works for you when you're doing this. I use Zoom pretty much exclusively because I can break people out. But the first thing that I want to do in my events is going to bring everyone together. As soon as I cover the backstory and set the stage for the event, I want to immediately go into building connections. Not between me and the audience, because if they showed up for you. You don't have to go through the laundry list of your accolades and awards. Give yourself permission not to do that. Connect them to each other. How you do that is build a breakout for them and ask them to share, give them a time limit, build a breakout and ask them to share what they want to gain from today.
Dan,
So yeah, go
question
ahead.
for you there, right? Like, how much of this is how much of this is it really also important to know what is the goal of the event for you and for them? Like, so what are they expecting out of the event, and what are you expecting out of the event? Right? Because
Yeah.
I think, like, if it's an event like a LinkedIn Live and it's just like a free information event, great. But like if you're doing this kind of like as a strategic like work like webinar to kind of educate them on the type of services and products that you do, I think that's my question, right? Because or when you do something that you do so well is that you go speak corporately, where
Mhm.
it's like you get paid to go speak corporately, but you just have a really great way to gather their information. You're not selling them there, and then you're delivering value, and they want to learn more about you. So how much of that is like, what's the goal of the workshop or the event, and then what is the goal of the attendant, the person who is attending that event?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge consideration, right? Your goal of your event, is this a prospect event? Do you want to sell in the event? Yes or no? Are there breakout opportunities? Where is this a funnel building event? You have to ask yourself those questions. And Daniel, to your point, you have to have absolute clarity on what you desire to achieve in the event, but also how you want them to experience you and what they desire. Now, a lot of times when we're doing events, I think we make a mistake and we have our agenda and we want to stick to our agenda. And that's okay. But sometimes when you break people out and you let them talk to each other, you'll find out the event will write itself for you. And so when you break people out, for instance, for 5 minutes and bring them back into a room and you say, so I'm going to go around the room and call on a few people and say, who did you meet and what did they want to get from the workshop? Now we have people talking about other people. And so now you're just getting information. And again, there's a little bit of art to this. You're getting information, you're getting everybody in the room warm and comfortable towards the idea of, okay, I feel now at home. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than event fatigue. Many of us have felt this. If we get event fatigue, and if it feels like and sounds like another event, you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask you for the recording. They're going to say, I can't make it. I want to get to the recording. But if they know your events are unique and they feel at home and they're going to feel heard on your events, you can actually turn that into an experience for them. Now, Daniel, you mentioned my corporate events. I'll give you a sense of how I do that, if that's helpful for anybody. I work with HR managers, ERG managers, employee resource groups at large companies, and I simply offer them an opportunity for me to teach their employees storytelling. That's my thing. I don't do resumes. I don't do LinkedIn updates. I just teach people storytelling. And so when I approach an HR manager, it's simply, hey, give me access to your employees. I want to teach them storytelling. That experience becomes my funnel. The one caveat that I do when I'm working with corporate professionals and in terms of building my funnel, I make them register through my Zoom account. So you see what happens there is most of the time they will say, we'll host you, we'll hold the Zoom. And you're frequently going, well, that makes it easier for me. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll just show up and perform. No, what I do is I say, in order for me to do this with you and for you, I have to have them register through me so that I can keep up and provide them with information after the call because I'm not selling on the call. I'm going to stop right there and just let you think about that. Any thoughts around that process? Daniel, you look like you're thinking about, you have something to say.
Yeah. So let's do this because I want to super helpful, right? Let's go through first. There's two main types of presentations that we're trying to do. One, we're doing a live event, whether in person or virtually, to generate leads, right? And then two, once we have leads, we're doing an event in person or online to turn those leads into sales calls or clients. So let's start with top of the funnel. So right now, let's talk about doing events to generate leads. So it could look like in Stan's world, going to corporate HR leaders or ERG groups and speaking and then getting leads that way. And in my way of doing it, when I used to do it, I would go speak on college campuses because that led to my ideal client of college students, right? So Stan, the workshop that you're designing for this like ERG groups and things like that, right? you're not selling because it's meant to be value added to the ERG group. So then let's talk about how to transition that into leads. How do you convert those individuals into the real funnel that you're trying to upsell them into like your other programs?
Yeah. So, and great question, Daniel. And so if you think about the funnel in the event, I'm going to walk them through several steps in the event. I'm going to set the stage. I'm going to give them an opportunity in the event to build connections. Now, sometimes these events are so big that I have to use the chat to do that. I ask them a lot of questions in the chat. And Ellie's been a part of my events where we just see literally hundreds of people just jamming out the chat, right? So get them engaged in the chat. Let them know that you are there, you are present, and this is not your normal presentation. And then what I do is I talk about the narrative. Again, I'm a storyteller, so this is something that might be unique to me. I talk about what I want for them as their future narrative. And a lot of times I'm in tune, and you all are in tune with your clients. So you want to paint that future narrative. Hey, I invited you here because I want you to experience this, and list out 3 or 4 things. And this is what I do. I list out a bunch of things that I want them to understand could be their future state. Then I go directly into, Daniel, I'm getting to your question,
Yep.
teaching moments. I then transition into anywhere from 1 to 3 teaching moments in an event. And it's really, really simple. I don't hold back. I don't worry about, I shouldn't share this because they get this in my course, or this is too valuable. I hold nothing back. I give them everything that I would give a client, right? And I don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, there's a situation where they're going to say, do I want to engage with this person again? Do I want to try to do something myself? Do I want him to do it with me or for me? And all of my products and services are done with you. So they're not, done for you or done by you. So when you think about your offer, you have to move them from the teaching moment to the call to action, which is the offer. I move directly from the teaching moments directly into the offer. And that offer could be something that's going to support the outcomes that they desire inside of the call. So if they've communicated to you what they want from the call and you've heard them, position the end of the call as something that they can gain by taking a next step with you. Now, what is a logical next step? Some of you, it might be get on a clarity call. Does anybody here do clarity calls? Just type yes in the chat. Anybody doing clarity calls here on this thing? Yeah, we do clarity calls. Okay, perfect. It could be clarity calls. Clarity calls stop working for me when I have 900 people at an event. Okay, they don't work when you have 900 people at an event. It's a great problem to have. Okay, if you have 100 people in an event and you do clarity calls for free, you're going to have a problem. So just be thinking about the future state of your business. Clarity calls are great, but you're only one person. How do you scale that? Maybe you have VAs. I'm not sure. Daniel's got great systems and processes to help you. But what I would say is make the call to action crystal clear and let them know what they're going to gain by doing what's next with you.
Do you
So
have
I'm
a
gonna stop there.
benchmark? Yeah. Do you have a benchmark? So like, okay, you have a corporate event,
Mhm.
900 people are there,
Yep.
which is like incredible. Like what a gold mine, right? And then out of those, when you think about 900 people, is there like a percentage of like that you should be like, okay, if I get 10%, 20%, 30%, that's a good benchmark for us to like start measuring ourselves, knowing that, hey, by the way, Stan, you are a master storyteller. You've been presenting not only in this like for a long time, like you've perfected this art. So like if you're doing a percentage, like we won't do that in the first couple of years, right? Like
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but at least something for us to have a good idea.
Yeah, so benchmark for me is about 30% of the call does something, whatever I want them to do. Now, what I want them to do is going to depend on how many people are there.
Mhm.
If there's 500 people on the call, I know the ratio is going to be about 150 people are going to want to come to whatever I invite them to next. Remember, I'm not converting on phone call, on webinars. I'm not converting on virtual events. Okay. The way the sales process works for me is I'll take that 130 people and I will invite them into another event where there's 75 seats for people to participate in a 2-day mastermind with me. Okay. Now, that's going to cause all sorts of brain things to happen. They're going to say, I need to get my name in there right now. They're going to want to get on this list. What happens is I let them register. And what I do is fill the 75 and start building the waiting list. So I can fill up multiple 2-day events from one large webinar. And so what my goal is in my business is to get them into a longer experience with me, because the sales process that I'm working with is then going to be a feedback call after that event where I will convert them on a high ticket coaching offer. And it'll be a 6-month mastermind. You have to think about what's going to work for you inside of your business and what you're selling. And I'm happy, by the way, to work with you. If somebody wants to jump on and talk about what they're offering, let's frame it out. We can frame it out right now.
Can I ask
Yeah,
some-
sure.
So I'm collaborating with someone. I'm from Canada, so I'm collaborating with another career coach from Edmonton,
Okay.
and we are doing an event.
Mhm.
So it will be minimum paid like $20 or $25. We're not there yet.
Mhm.
And then we're just going to tell them job search strategies, like in general, nothing specific, not in details. Maybe we will say, like, you need to have networking, you need to be branding, all of this.
Mhm.
At the end, we will say that if you are interested to know more, we have a boot camp, which will be either 3 or 4 days and will be discounted, or this is the price, this is the link. This is how we are trying to target the sales call or the event.
Okay. Okay. So would you be okay with me giving you a few suggestions?
Sure. Again,
Okay.
this is a trial, never tried it, but based on what I've seen, like it's like, as you've mentioned, it's an event, get them hooked so that we can sell the bootcamp.
Yeah. So I think what may work, what I would try if I were you, is at the beginning of the call, at some point in the call, after you set the foundation and set the stage, I would introduce the boot camp model to that group and
Okay.
let them know that you're going to actually cover 1 or 2 pieces from the boot camp. So instead of having you give them information
Mm.
and then tell them about this boot camp, let the call be about the boot camp and
Okay.
share 2 things from the boot camp
Mhm.
that they're going to get in the boot camp. But again, paint the picture that they're going to get so much more.
Yeah.
So in other
Yeah,
words,
just
what
to
I would
highlight.
do,
Okay.
what I would do is, so I have 3 parts of my business. I have create stories, share stories, and invite others into your story. And in create stories, what I do is simply, I let them know I'm going to teach you how to become a person of influence in sharing your story, have ultimate clarity and ultimate confidence in your story ability. In share your story, I tell them, hey, listen, I'm going to teach you how to answer the question, tell me about you, with flawless execution, do persuasive presentations, and personal branding. I'm going to teach you how to align your stories with your personal brand. And in invite, I'm offering you an opportunity to teach you a networking strategy that would work, that leverages all your storytelling abilities and actually brings opportunities to you. So you see, when I explain that, that is my program.
Mhm.
So it's almost like I'm giving them a glimpse. I'm painting a picture of my program inside the pre-event. But then what I do is say, I don't have time to give this all to you today.
Yeah.
Then I use a whiteboard and I circle what I'm covering. I say, today, I'm going to cover 1 lesson from my program. And that lesson is tell me about you, which is one of the most important questions you can learn how to answer. And then I make the call about tell me about you. But at the end, your call to action is going to be, if you recall, I could only cover 1 thing today. There's so much more, and I want to give you more. That's why I want to invite you into the boot camp.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Anybody have any thoughts or questions around that methodology? Ellie's like, I picked up that technique.
I have a quick question and comment on that. I've used that. And my name is Rajiv. And I do career coaching, just like many people here. I use that. So number one, to your earlier point, I made the mistake, had like 80 to 90 people show up on the call, and then I said clarity call. Like 16, 17, 18 people booked the call, and then I had to hire my friend, and it became a nightmare. So I totally agree with that. That was a little chaotic. Regarding this, in terms of, I use the same technique as well. It worked really well, and in fact, I even, like you said, showed everything. So it's like, wow, this is a big 5-step thing, and then circled the one area that I'm going to talk about and expanded on that, and then reminded them at the end, because then as long as you did that 1 out of the 5 really well, it kind of helps them want more and see, and also it helps them think like, hey, there's a lot more to this than just what you just talked about, and I'm kind of missing out, that type of FOMO almost. But yeah, I just wanted to agree with you there, and I should definitely use it more, because I failed to use it again once I tried it the first time. So yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And again, we have to fight as coaches. We have to fight the urge to share a little bit about everything. This is not going to attract enough people. If you just focus on one thing that you are amazing at and let them know there's so much more in this next thing, or in wherever you're inviting them to, let them know that they're going to get that level of support in what's next, you will increase, I believe you will increase your conversions in those events.
We have some data around this because we would host 2 workshops a week for our international student audience, and we've tested 1 workshop a week, 2 workshops a week. We've tested, we have a 5-step process, which is clarity, visibility, networking, interviewing, and salary negotiation. We've tested talking about all of those 5 steps a little bit in each one. We've tested all those steps individually as individual workshops. We've tested having 1 big workshop of over 100 people a week, or having 2 workshops with less than 50. And here's what the data essentially told our team is the best workshop that converts from people who were there and schedule a discovery call was actually talking about interviewing only. And I found that really interesting because, so as fellow career coaches, you go ahead and steal this or if it helps you, right? So the way our funnel would work is LinkedIn content. We would then do lead gen. We would invite them, instead of a sales call right away, we would invite them to a free workshop. So we always warm up our clients with a workshop. And again, after all this testing, the workshop was always interviewing. We used to rotate it. So we had this 5 steps. We would rotate, like, so every 5 workshops, it would be, you go back in a circle. But every time interviewing we just did it converted better. And I found it really interesting because interviewing is something that everyone knows is going to happen in the job search process, but most people who are in the workshop are not even getting interviews. So it's like, okay, I can see how this information is super valuable, and if this is just 1 out of the 5 steps, I could just imagine what the other ones look like. But when I talked about, let's say, resumes or networking, they felt like they just got that information. I'm just going to go execute it myself. And so maybe I'll just wait to work with Daniel. Like, let me go do this myself, and then maybe come back to Daniel and OPNI later, or Mastering College to Career when it was called that way. But interviewing is like, well, I need help with the other phases before I came into interviewing. And what we were able to get to a point is that, like, we were converting, Marty, was it 70%, 75% of people that like attended with scheduled calls? What was the number? Do you remember? That me and Samuel used to argue a lot about, like, who had a higher close rate?
Yeah, it was like 75%, I think, or
Yeah,
even once it was like 80.
80. Yeah, but interviewing always did the best. And so the point is, we dialed it in. Like, at first, we were in the 40s, 50%. It's like, we didn't get to 75% overnight. Like, this is a lot of trial and error, like a lot of like tweaking. This is, I'm telling you, we've did hundreds of workshops before, like, we even got to the one that we just got and repeated over and over again. But I think what was really interesting to everything you guys are saying is, you have to really make sure that you dive into one of the points, but let them know this is just this piece of the whole pie. And also too, we want to make sure that we qualify the leads before we schedule them to call, because if not, you'll be overwhelmed with calls. And so I think that's where it's having really clear understanding of who should book a call and who shouldn't. You just saying everyone in the call has access to the free call. I think that you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're going to have a lot of unqualified leads in those calls.
Yeah, there's two things that I want to just point out that Daniel's saying here. Number one is, and I'm writing this down because just stuff's coming to my head. The greatest problem gets the most attention. And so what Daniel, you figured out here is that they will show up to solve what they believe is their greatest problem, which is interviewing, because they feel the anxiety of performing in the interview. So they feel like, I'll show up for that. And then the other thing is, when you're doing what Daniel describes, and I do this in my events, I'm selling through the event, throughout the whole entire event. It's all about the model. And as I'm introducing this event, this model inside the event, nobody feels like they're being sold at the end, because the model was introduced at the beginning of the event. I'm just revisiting it. I say things like, remember, we talked at the beginning about creating, sharing, and inviting others into your story. And we just simply covered one thing that we know you need desperately, which is to tell the story of you inside of an interview. Now, I only got to one thing today, but the great news is that I'm going to offer you an opportunity to come sit with me for 4 hours and learn the rest of the material. And so what they're thinking is, if I got a lot from this, I desperately want to be on that. Now, I make it harder for people because I make them schedule a feedback call with me in order to get into the event. And it's a 4-hour commitment. At the end of that meeting, Daniel, I do exactly what you said, which is, this isn't for everyone. If you don't have 4 hours to spend over 2 days on a Monday and Tuesday night, do not sign up for this, because I want the right people in the room. And you have to say that with conviction, and let them know, because you just don't want everybody. They're all not going to buy from you.
Yeah. And I would say, like, in the beginning, when you don't have a lot of leads, or you don't have a lot of people attending to the event, sure, you don't have to have a bunch of qualification questions. Like, you can be, it's obviously that becomes as you figure the top of the funnel out, and that becomes not the issue, then you obviously need to create like the right filtering in process, so that you're not wasting your time talking to unqualified people, because that's obviously going to drain your time and your resources.
Yeah. You don't want to drain your time. You don't want to drain your resources. And you might be in a situation where you can get 10 people to an event. Maybe you can get 12 people to an event, and that's okay. But if you deliver to those 12 the experience of you, they're signing up not for they're signing up maybe initially for the information they think they're going to receive, but it's your opportunity to share with them the experience of you. And if you do that well, people are going to want to be around you whenever you do anything. I'll give you a perfect example. I have an event this Wednesday and Thursday. It's a 2-day event. And I filled that event with 75 people only from my email address. Why? Because I only targeted people who have been to webinars in the past. And so once they get used to you, once they will start showing up for you when you do things. And it's just about making sure that you have clear definition on what the experience of you looks like. How do you want them to experience you? Do you want them to get information or experience? Do you want them to feel like that you're a part of their story, that they're a part of your story? And so there's different things that considerations outside of just business objectives. And I think a lot of us can be very, very focused on what we want the outcome to be. And I'm like, yes, I want to make more money. I have close ratios I want to hit. I've got conversion rates. We have all of that. But don't lose sight of the fact that they're giving you their most valuable asset, which is their time. Yeah. In exchange for something, which is an experience, not just information.
Yeah. I guess it's a good point of, like, it's not information is not good enough, because what information is not already online.
Right.
Right. So they're obviously like, and they can go watch a YouTube video on the same topic that you're like, how to interview for international students, and 1,000 pictures, videos of people talking about what show up. The live events, whether it's virtually or in person, people are craving that community. So are you making the event a community, or could this, they could have, the question I think, and you prompt me to think about it differently with this call, Stan, is like, if somebody watched the replay, would they get the same experience as the people here were here live? Right. And that's part of the reasons why we have a lot of open up questions for you guys to ask questions to the guests, because if you're here, the advantage is that you get to ask questions to the guests, versus if you watch the replay, you won't get that. You don't get to talk to Stan about the same question, right? And so like, which is super interesting to think through how to increase that experience even further. So
Yeah. I mean, it's something honestly that you have to make a decision, I think, in your own business about replays in general. I'm about an 80% hardline, Daniel, on not sharing replays anymore. And I know that goes against, some business rules that some experts write somewhere. And if you look at that, you'd say, well, why not send them the replay? They registered. At the end of the day, I want people to know that what I'm sharing is important. And if I'm sharing a workshop, I'm giving my heart. I'm pouring my heart into this work. And so you've got to show up to get the information. That's just the way I feel about it.
I think there's pros and cons to all of it. And I think it's also understanding what is the business objective there, right? Like if it's, are you trying to get them inside your program, and in your program, like, because the program's gonna be great. I don't know. Like, I think there's a case to be made in both of them. I don't think there's a clear what's the right way to doing it, right? Like
I think intentional lead magnets are different than webinar replays, right?
Yeah.
For me, I have video lead magnets, and I'm not saying like, inside my community, like this community, I share replays all the time because people have committed to be a part of it. So people are in. But if I'm having a 2-day, 4-hour webinar or workshop, I'm not going to share that replay because people won't watch it for 4 hours.
Yes.
They won't feel like they're a part of it. That's going to give them maybe even a negative taste towards me. I'd rather just put them on the wait list and say, hey, we don't share the replay, but here's the next event.
Yeah.
So it's more of a business objective.
Yeah. And that's because, and I think that makes so much sense in your case, because you're having these, whether it's once a month or every 2 weeks or like whatever that may be. So that, like, if you're not going to really lose the lead knowing that there's another one going, which if I think through, like, we never had a replay for our interviewing one, because like, oh my God, do you have the replay? Our answer was like, no, but we can, there's a next week, our next one is on Monday. Would you like me to send you the registration link? So I think because we wanted them live there, we know that, by the way, we tried it. The conversion rate on somebody watching the same webinar, and remember, I just told you guys we had a 75% conversion rate. If we watch the replay, it would probably be less than 10%. Like, it would not convert. It would not convert at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony,
it's just a business. You have to make a business decision there. And I think for some people, sharing replays will work, depending on what you're selling, how long your webinar is, and what who you're targeting. But for me, they're not going to come out of a 4-hour experience. They're just not going to spend 4 hours on it if they don't feel like they're a part of it. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is, if you wanted to do longer experiences like I'm doing with people, I have a 95% return rate of people signing up on day 1 and attending day 2.
That's insanely high.
And that is a direct result of the engagement strategy, the exact steps that we talked about earlier: setting the stage, building connection, teaching moments, getting the aha moments from them, putting them into groups, letting them connect with each other. And then again, like, setting up day 2 as you need to be. Like, I tell people at the end of day 1, listen, tomorrow will be the best 2 hours you've ever invested in your career. Do not miss it.
But so do you say like day 2 is actually better than day 1? Like,
yeah. I say day 2 is like that. Like, you don't want to miss day 2.
So
If you
here's a
think
question
day
for
one
you.
was great, you need to be at day two.
Why not make it a 1-day event? What's
Um,
the psychology behind 2 days? And then after that, Tony, I see you. So you'll be next on the question.
The psychology for me in a 2-day event, Daniel, is honestly, I have the teaching moment. I have 3 teaching moments that I want to bring them through. And if I'm doing it in 1 day, I'm going to have to rush all of that.
Even
And
if you did a 4-hour 1-day event.
I just haven't tested it. I think I could test it, and I may test it. I might test a 1-day, 2-hour event and do 1 teaching moment and see if I can get
Convert
people
the
to
same number.
convert to the mastermind from that. I haven't proven that it doesn't work. I just haven't tested it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good thoughts there for sure.
Tony.
Stan, thanks for providing some great insights. You know, the frameworks you provided, the approaches you recommended, you know, very sound and, you know, creating a lot of thoughts in my mind. But if I could take maybe the back a little higher into the funnel, you know, you've been doing this for a while. You've got an established list of people. You've got corporations that you work with. You can bring people in. What recommendations do you have to help people get people to attend? And I say that because many people, if they're doing this for the first time or are not as well known or, you know, haven't established that credibility, you know, it's a crowded marketplace right now, especially
Sure.
for, I know the number of people here are, you know, career type, job search type coaches. I'm not, but I know there are. How do you differentiate yourself in a crowded marketplace? And, you know, I noticed you're not that active on LinkedIn. So how do you, or how did you, or how would you recommend people go about kind of getting the funnel started?
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a great question. Let me answer the LinkedIn question. I was extremely active on LinkedIn for about a year, Tony. And I mean active as in posting every single day, 5 days a week, not on weekends, for about a year straight. And you won't see that now because I've gotten a little bit of LinkedIn fatigue. And I've gotten a base from that. I went from 2,000 followers to 12, almost 13,000 in about 12 to 14 months. And I did that through content strategies. Daniel and his team had taught me much of those strategies. So, you know, you're in the right place at home here with Daniel in terms of like building the momentum. To answer your question about how to get people to the event, I think it's exactly that. I have gotten myself to a point where I don't have to push heavy on LinkedIn to move a mountain of people. But make no mistake, Tony, I've put the time in on LinkedIn.
Well, that's
I
what I'm
have
looking
done the
for is
content.
what
Yeah.
did that time look like? Because once you've established that mailing list, that contact list, that credibility, because people have seen your events or know people that have, but it's that initial activities
Oh, yeah.
that you did.
Yeah, I mean, everything from like the initial LinkedIn strategies was everything from spending the first hour and a half a day engaging on other people's contents, on other career coaches' contents, you know, in whether that's in a pod type of format, just really giving. And then also my content really niching down into what I know, which is storytelling. I have tons of content around like storytelling frameworks, how to answer the question, tell me about you, how to tell a peak story, the difference between a peak and a redemption and an origin story, a valley story. I've kind of defined a lot of terms that are in my niche on LinkedIn, which kind of attracted a certain type of audience with me. Now, in the background, during that time, Tony, I also was working on securing some larger corporate deals. I also did some speaking gigs. So I think like there isn't a one single bullet, Tony, like, you know, offering yourself up. I did 2 years of corporate gigs for free. 2 years of going, offering my services for webinars for absolute free. And that was the biggest payoff ever because it was top of funnel for me. But I also spoke at South by Southwest twice. I had to apply for that. How much time does it take to apply for South by Southwest? Daniel will laugh. For me, 20 hours. Right? 20 hours to work up a application that made sense and get selected to go to South by Southwest. Again, these are things that we can say we do to give us additional credibility. And so I don't know if I've got the perfect answer for you, Tony, but what I would say, it's a blend of content, being consistent, commenting on LinkedIn, and attracting the right people to you, and giving them a clear offer. Most of the people on LinkedIn, like if you want to separate yourself, in my opinion, just have a clear offer. Just like make sure that people know exactly what you do. And, you know, in order to stand out, like that's number one, that's step one in standing out. Like, hey, how do I get in touch with this person? You know?
Thank you.
Yeah. And things like, just because you don't see a clarity call on my profile doesn't mean I don't have one. I have it buried in my About Me section strategically. So when I started, there was book a call with me right on the feature page, and I was getting calls from that. Great. That helped me propel my business, and that's a perfect strategy for me. But now I have to hide that link, and I want you to go read my About Me before I even give you an opportunity to schedule a one-on-one. Why? Because I need you to be more qualified, right? And so there are different strategies inside there as you grow your business, Tony. Hope that helps, my friend.
Yes, thank you.
So we got 9 minutes left. Any other questions for Stan? Any thoughts on live presentations? Ariel.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I'm curious how, I understand the process of like qualifying people more, the busier you get, that makes sense. But in terms of like how many hours of you they get before they sign up for something paid, like, can you talk about the ratio of how much free versus how much paid? And like the higher the ticket, obviously, I'm guessing that would change, but can you just speak to that a little bit? Because I think some of us wonder how long we got to do free before we offer paid.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So typically the cycle for me, and so we talk about the customer experience, someone will typically experience me inside of a webinar for an hour. Then they will be invited into one of two places: my Copilot community, which is a career community for job seekers. If I'm on a webinar that's a heavy emphasis on job seekers, I'm not even going to offer them the 2-day event, Ariel. I'm going to offer them to go straight into the Copilot, and that converts probably at 45%. Okay, so again, I'll give you an example. I did a webinar for with a company called Flex Jobs. You may have heard, some of you may have heard of them. They're called Flex Jobs. They invited a bunch of people. The call to action was Copilot community. We had a bunch of people join. It's $90 a quarter. Okay. But that's recurring revenue, right? So that's one avenue. The other avenue is going to be, if I'm on with corporate mid-career professionals, Ariel, I'm going to offer them to go to the 2-day event. That's another 4-hour investment, but I can get 70 people in that event. And from that 70, I can convert anywhere from 20 to 25 if I can get 75 people show up at $4,000 to $5,000. So my last launch, just to give you all, we're in a confidential environment here. I've got other career coaches. So my last launch was a $32,000 event. So for the 4 hours of time that I spent, I made $32,000 in the 4 hours. And that's just based on a mid, it's not really a high ticket, because some coaches are charging 10, 12, and 15,000 for 6-month masterminds. I'm charging 4 to 5 for mine. And so, you know, I give some scholarship opportunities there, but yeah, you know, I can envision having $50,000 months just based on that event. So I hope that gives you a sense of like a picture of, yeah, it is a heavy investment, but it can really pay off if you have something on the other side of your time that's scalable. And I think that's the key. Daniel taught me this. Having something scalable on the other side of what you're doing is so critically important. And so you have to figure out how to serve many people, done with you, in my opinion, done with you, not necessarily done for you. You can do some done for you stuff, but you're ultimately limited to either yourself or the number of people you can hire when you're doing that. Does that help, Ariel?
we've seen you will increase your sales call conversion when you have a webinar in the middle or some way of warming them up. And a webinar or a live event is better than any PDF, ebook, course that you can send them. So like that's like for all our clients, we always encourage, so like content, lead, invite them to a live event. It's like that is the best lead magnet. And then from there, sales call or discovery call it whatever you want to call it, right? And so like them spending 4 hours with Stan makes the sales call so much easier. So like I'm sure he's closing his 33% according to that 75 and 30 some people joined, like, or 25 people joined. That's a 33% conversion rate. That's really, really good, which means it's like the power of the workshop.
Yeah, that without the workshop, that doesn't happen, right? And Daniel, to your point, and I think we all should just land on, and this is something I believe to be universally true. Even if a client tells me that they need a coach, they always hire a coach because they want a coach, not because they need a coach. Even if they say the words, I need a coach, I know that this investment of coaching is something, it has to be something you want to do. Because I've worked with many, many clients in a one-on-one capacity before I started doing bigger events. And every time they say to me, hey, I think I need a coach. I would say, okay, why do you want a coach? Because that gives me the information that I need to know that I have a good prospect. Let them I always ask them to explain it to me.
Amazing.
All right,
Stan.
so we got a little bit of time. Anybody
Yes.
else have anything else? I hope y'all had some fun today with me talking about events. Anything that you didn't get answered today? Anything that's in your mind that you wanted an answer to that I didn't get to today? Yes.
I have a question, which is the mindset. I feel that a lot of immigrants or international students that I'm helping here in Canada, they don't have that mindset of I need to invest in a coach. They want all the free stuff, which we are all giving. You know, we give them discovery calls or every free stuff, PDF, whatever you wanted. But still, that conversion of, as a career coach, you're not just buying my services or my time, you're also buying my network, which is the hidden job market. You're also buying my brain. But it's still in their mind, it's not clear. So I was wondering how you can give some tips in that sense or strategies, because we're all giving tips, you know, we all comment on each other's content, you know, free advice we're all giving, but still that conversion, when I do the sometimes discovery call, even in my discovery call, I ask them, have you worked with a coach before? Yes or no? Do you have a budget in mind? And the moment they say no, and I have in my mind that, okay, this will be a difficult call, some I have been successful to convert them and paid, but I would say majority of them, oh, okay, I'm not, you know, the budget or whatever it is. So what do you say about that? And thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to kind of skin this cat in terms of answering the question. I would say, you know, when you're giving away things, you know, it can be that you're just giving away so much that you're devaluing. And so what's left for them to get, right? And that's why I say, like, for you, try to narrow in on that one thing that you want, that's high value, that people can't live without. And people spend money to solve their problems with the people that they feel are going to solve their problems with them, not for them. Right. Okay. And so I would say you've got to really lean into, you know, finding out what the big problem is. There are many people on this call, I'm sure, that ask the budget question. I don't ask the budget question, but you know, it's just, those are just different strategies and tactics, you know. David, I saw you raise your hand. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan, for all your insights. This has been an incredible conversation. I just want to touch a little bit on what Mary was mentioning, because we are on the same sphere with international students, and what we have found this year specifically is that by changing our program and the ideal client, we have seen much better results, because our program in the past, we would accept everybody. So we accept first semester students, second semester students. but it's way more difficult to place a first semester student, a second semester student in this economy where nobody's gonna hire them on a full-time basis because they don't have the legal status to work 40 hours a week.
Mhm.
So what we do right now is we have people apply for the program.
Okay.
And we are a little bit more strict with the client that we have. So we now are accepting only students who are about to graduate or students who have recently graduated.
Mhm.
Because they have not more that urgency of getting that job. And they have already tried a couple of things. And again, because we have done the workshops and the webinars and this, we have built that trust. So I feel that has worked much better for us. And then the other people who are maybe in like first semester, second semester, we have other resources of other things that we can give them to nurture that relationship. So when the time comes, they can come back to us if they want to. So maybe
Yeah, I
that-
mean, it sounds like you've got some of that figured out, and that's, I think, a good thing. Just being able to get the right audience into the right room with you, into the right venue, and then focus on their problems. I think that's perfect. I mean, I think we're all trying to do something very similar, right? Making sure we get the right people in the right room with us to give them an opportunity to make a decision whether or not they want to work with us. And
I have one question though. So one thing that resonated a lot was when you mentioned about what kind of experience do you want the attendee to have for one another. I think that was brilliant. And you mentioned the breakout rooms. I don't know if you or anybody else have other ideas of how you can make that kind of sense of community and experience. We, for example, in our events, we do polls at first. It's just 1 hour event. So for example, I find that for us, doing breakout rooms at the beginning, especially we have like guest speakers and stuff, is going to be kind of a challenge for time constraints. So I'm wondering if there's any other ideas of how to give people that experience.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I have only an hour, it's hard to do a breakout room. I'll try to do one if I'm on Zoom. If I have 2 hours, I'm going to do 1 to 2 breakouts for sure. The breakout sessions, when I get feedback, when I have gotten feedback from my webinars, what people love the most is the breakout sessions and the networking that comes with that. Do not discount that. That is their experience of the webinar outside of you, and they actually make human connections inside of that webinar. If you can figure out a way to do that, that is like a silver bullet in my opinion. Now, if you don't have the ability to do that, you have to be engaging in the chat. I mean, every 3 slides, I'm asking a question. Is this right? How many people feel this way? I am just hammering them with questions in the chat to make sure that I keep them engaged the entire way. So outside of that, those are the 2 things that I use, but I prefer breakouts because people come back from the breakouts wanting to talk about what happened in the breakouts.
Experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, wonderful.
Amazing. Stan, do you have a call to action for us, or just I don't know? You know, this could have been all curated perfectly to take us somewhere.
Well, I can tell you that most of you who are here are in exactly the right place that you need to be with the right people in this community. I'm a member of this community. Of course, I would welcome a follow on LinkedIn if that's if you want to see how I do things on LinkedIn. I'm not the most active person today on LinkedIn, but I will tell you a secret. And Ellie's not here. I wish she was here for this. I have 30 days of video content in library ready to bombard LinkedIn. So you're about to see, Daniel, the video barrage hit LinkedIn real soon on my page. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Stan, thanks again for being a member of the community, for being so generous with your time, for sharing, and not only your time, you could have spent an hour with us and not share anything. Coming here and being an open book and just being so transparent about how you do your business and sharing some of the best practices that you found through the hard way of trial and error, right?
Yeah.
With the community. Appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah,
Truly.
appreciate you all. And if you have any questions about events, or if you have an event that you want to run by me, just hit me up, DM me. I'm happy to jump on a call with you and chat about anything you want to chat about as it relates to your events. And if I can help you, give you a framework, I'm happy to do that. So thanks for being here. everyone.
Amazing. Great event, guys. See you guys next week. And I'll see you guys inside the community. Bye, everyone.